Welcome back to the strategy session. I'm your host, Alex, and today we are tackling a topic that is far less about spreadsheets and far more about psychology. How to train your mind to withstand financial pressure. It's the silent battle we all fight, whether we're looking at a market crash or just an unexpected repair bill. To guide us through this blend of neuroeconomics and wealth management, I'm thrilled to welcome our guest, financial psychologist and market strategist, Dr. Beth Collin. Beth, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Alex. It's great to be here. And you nailed the premise right out of the gate. This truly is the most profitable battle of your life. We spend so much time learning how to make money, but almost none learning how to behave when that money is at risk.
Context. Why our brains are the problem. That's a powerful distinction. Let's start with the context. We live in a highly volatile economic ecosystem. Inflation, tech bubble burst, global instability, it's a constant barrage of noise. So what is the core problem? Is it the market volatility itself or something deeper?
It's absolutely deeper. The core problem is not that crises exist, it's how we react to them. The moment pressure mounts, most people become their own worst financial enemies. They panic sell, they buy on impulse, or, crucially, they fall into what we call financial avoidance. They just stop opening their statements. This destructive pattern isn't a moral failing. It stems from a biological flaw we are all wired with. And that's where neuroeconomics comes in.
So we're talking about a primal survival mechanism kicking in when we should be using our strategic long-term thinking.
Exactly. We have to understand our primary adversary, our own brain. When you feel that knot in your stomach watching your portfolio drop, or when an urgent bill lands, your body releases stress hormones, mainly cortisol. Studies show this chemical cocktail instantly activates the amygdala.
The amygdala, the fight or flight center.
Precisely. It's the primitive alarm system. And here's the devastating part for your finances. That amygdala activation partially shuts down your prefrontal cortex. That is the strategic part of your brain, responsible for logic, long-term planning, and emotional regulation.
So when we're stressed about money, the part of our brain designed to plan our retirement is literally offline.
It's sidelined. And what happens? You make compulsive purchases, what some call retail therapy, or you grab a high-interest quick loan. Your brain isn't thinking, how do I build stability? It's thinking, how do I get immediate relief from this discomfort? It just wants to escape the pain, even if it creates more pain later.
That's a huge insight. So if we know we're prone to this amygdala hijacking, how do we override it?
The number one strategy is to add friction to your panic decisions. We recommend implementing the 72-hour rule for any significant financial move. Selling a big block of stock, making a major purchase, or refinancing. If it's not a life or death emergency, postpone the decision for 3 days. That simple delay allows the cortisol levels to drop and the prefrontal cortex to literally reboot and regain control. It's like waiting for the dust to settle before you pick up the pieces.
Core discussion, loss aversion, and detachment. That's actionable right now. Moving to another cognitive bias the document explores, loss aversion. Can you explain why losing money hurts us so much more than gaining the same amount gives us pleasure?
It's one of the most powerful findings in behavioral economics, brought to us by Nobel laureates Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky. Their prospect theory demonstrated that the psychological pain of a loss is approximately twice as intense as the pleasure of an equivalent gain.
Twice as intense? That's staggering.
It is. And this bias explains the two classic destructive errors investors make under pressure. The first is holding on to losing positions. You refuse to accept the loss, so you hold on to a declining stock, hoping it will recover, even when all logic says you should sell. You're trying to avoid the pain of realizing that loss.
That's so relatable, you don't want to admit you are wrong.
Exactly. The second error is the flip side. It's selling winning positions too soon. You close a profitable investment the moment you see any volatility just to lock in the gain, but you miss out on all the long-term growth. The fear of that game reversing is greater than the excitement of it growing. That fear of loss prevents us from taking well-calculated risks. Understanding this is key. Your reaction is not a moral weakness. It is a brain design flaw that can be corrected.
So, if that's the flaw, what are the pillars we need to build our mental fortress on?
Mental resilience isn't innate. It's a capacity that's built on two intrinsically linked pillars: financial resilience and cognitive tools. Let's start with the financial base, the economic buffer. Nobody can train their mind to resist pressure if their economic base is fragile. Your ability to handle stress is measured directly by the amount of time you can survive without income before panic sets in. This translates to the non-negotiable emergency fund.
The consensus is 3 to 6 months of fixed expenses, right?
Absolutely. That's your first psychological firewall. It's not just for car repairs. It's a mental shield that buys your prefrontal cortex time to think. And secondly, you must tackle high interest debt. Credit card debt and consumer loans are primary triggers for acute, paralyzing stress. Eliminating those is the fastest way to reduce the overall pressure in your life.
I want to focus on the second part of resilience, which is purely psychological, emotional detachment. How do we truly separate our self-worth from our net worth?
This is about treating money as a working tool, not an extension of your personal identity. Think about the 2008 global financial crisis. The investors who lost fortunes weren't just the ones in risky assets. They were the ones that, under pressure, sold at the worst possible moment. They converted a temporary paper loss into a permanent loss out of sheer panic.
That reminds me of the famous John Bogle quote: "The key to long-term investing is often doing nothing during volatility."
That discipline is detachment in action. A great practical exercise is what we call the mirror exercise. Create a written long-term investment plan, goals for 5, 10, and 20 years. When the market drops and you feel panic, read that plan. Ask yourself, did my 20-year plan change because the S&P 500 dropped 5% today? If the answer is no, you stay the course. The written plan is your anchor of rationality, pulling you out of the emotional tidal wave.
That's a fantastic way to reconnect with your original purpose. Let's move to the cognitive tools that force our logical brain back online. The source material highlights two powerful ones. The first, the 10-10-10 rule.
The 10-10-10 rule, popularized by author Susie Welch, is a perfect mental filter to combat impulsivity. When facing a critical decision, like whether to sell that stock, or maybe spent your savings on a luxury vacation, you ask yourself 3 questions. How will I feel about this decision in 10 minutes? That addresses the immediate impulse. How will I feel about this decision in 10 months? That evaluates medium-term regret. And finally, how will I feel about this decision in 10 years? That assesses long-term impact and alignment with your goals.
Can you give us a quick everyday example of this?
Sure. Let's say you're considering dropping $5,000 you saved for a house down payment on a luxury vacation. Right? Immediate relief is tempting. The 10-10-10 analysis reveals 10 minutes, pure euphoria, champagne and excitement. 10 months, guilt and you've delayed your home buying goal. 10 years, you regret giving in to fleeting pleasure instead of building wealth. The rule pulls you out of the present's survival scheme and forces a long-term cost assessment.
I love that. It's an active delay strategy. The second tool is perhaps even more crucial for managing fear: the worst-case scenario exercise.
Uncertainty is the fuel of pressure. We are afraid of the unknown. The WCS exercise involves taking your fear to its logical, practical conclusion. You don't avoid the fear, you quantify it.
So, if my fear is I'm afraid of losing my job and running out of money,
You define the worst-case scenario. I lose my job today. It takes me 9 months to find a new one. I exhaust my emergency fund. Then you calculate the damage. I would need X money to survive 9 months. I might have to sell my second car and move to a slightly smaller apartment. The worst that happens is my life is downsized, but I don't go bankrupt.
By giving the fear a name and numbers, it loses its paralyzing power. It transforms from an existential crisis into an engineering problem.
Exactly. Central banks do this with stress tests on the entire financial system. They don't do it to prevent the crisis. They do it to know they have a clear plan when it hits. You must do the same with your personal finances. It shifts your mindset from, oh no, what if, to, if X happens, I execute Y.
That brings us full circle to the concept of authority and trust, because to resist pressure, you need solid reference points, not sensationalist rumors. You need to know when the market's drop is just a blip or a predictable reaction.
That's where the wisdom of the greats comes.